What an amazing story. Have we just heard the greatest story ever told? Quite possibly. It's a familiar one for many, even if you've not read much of the Bible or been to church. The parable of the prodigal son, as it's best known as. Prodigal just means reckless, wasteful. The story is so simple, yet deeply profound. It's one of the longest parables that Jesus teaches, and yet when you hear it once, you can never forget it. It's beautiful in its crafting. It's powerful in what it does or what it intends to do to the hearer, because it doesn't just teach truth, it makes you feel truth. And I put it to you, the reason it's so good at doing this is because it's so relatable. We can relate to all the characters in this story to a certain degree in certain ways. The prodigal son, the younger son. You can think of someone just like him, can't you? Someone who's behaved so badly, who has hurt people so deeply, the person who just leaves a trail of tears wherever they go. Maybe it's easy for you to picture this person because you see him, her in the mirror every day. Your story has the darkest of chapters. Maybe it's not you in the sense that you've never hit this graphic rock bottom, but there's streaks of the younger son in you, isn't there? Big dreams that you were sure were going to fulfill you that only disappointed, in fact, became nightmares. Opportunities that you've wasted, people that you've let down, regrets that you now carry. Or maybe it's just a sense of feeling quietly lost in life. What's it about? Maybe lost in yourself, in your own mind and emotions. Maybe the prodigal brings to mind someone that you know, a friend or a family member that you've observed at a distance. You've watched them over many years as they make bad decision after bad decision, drifting deeper into loneliness, darkness, addiction, despair. This can happen in front of your very eyes. Or it can happen in a way where they are so far removed from you, you can only wonder where they are and how they are and what are they doing right now, what is being done to them right now. If so, you can especially relate to the father in the story. But we can all relate to the father in some kind of way. The pain of losing a precious relationship. It's gone. It's never coming back. That feeling of having been used, taken advantage of, when someone didn't really want you, they just wanted what they could get from you. Was it money? Was it power? Was it sex? Was it opportunity? And most of us who have lived this long know something of betrayal. Someone we thought loved us and would be by our side, only to find otherwise. The father is a very relatable figure in this story. And the older brother, well, he resonates more than we might want to admit. Resentment, when we don't get the recognition that we're sure we deserve, that we've worked hard for, that we're entitled to. Especially we look at people who then get good things and we're sure they don't deserve it. It's not fair. Bitterness can creep into our soul and colour our whole posture to life. This story is so powerful because it connects to our own story. It engages at a deep emotional level. It's supposed to. And the details of the story, they don't need much explanation if you were tracking along. But its meaning? Why does Jesus tell this story? What message does he have for us in it? Well, we discover the answer to that by looking at the setting out of which Jesus first told this story. And we see it, if you've got a Bible there, chapter 15, verse 1, which is why it's really helpful to bring a Bible. If you don't have one, go grab one, buy one. We'll give you one in the foyer. Look at this stuff for yourself. Chapter 15, verse 1, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Tax collectors and sinners, this is a class of people in first century Jewish life. This is the underbelly. Think pimps and prostitutes, shady wheeler dealers. And then you've got the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, who are a striking contrast. These were the squeaky, clean, religious, Bible-reading, synagogue-going, moral people, impressive people. And they notice Jesus eats and associates with this scum, and they complain, what kind of rabbi of God does this man think that he is? If I were to take my dog for a long walk, it'll take me down to the waterfront and past a halfway house, which is a house that has a whole bunch of men who have been released from prison but not yet fully into the community. And there's a deck at the front, great water views, they're all gathering. Many of them fit the image, right? Well, it sits along multi-million-dollar waterfront properties. Owners who have worked really hard for their piece of paradise. We moved there 20 years ago, right? It was actually a bit of a dodgy place back then. You can imagine some of these owners quite unhappy with the kind of freeloading criminals they have for neighbours. And imagine if they saw a dad from their kids' soccer team walk up onto the veranda, sit down and hang out with these men. What are they thinking about him? Man, what kind of respectable man does he think he is? I'm not letting my kids play with his. That's the kind of setting that is happening as Jesus then, verse 3, told this parable to them. Who's the them? Well, it's anyone and everyone within earshot, but it's specifically to those who are complaining about the company that Jesus keeps. To the moral, to the religious, to the squeaky clean. That is critical to get. Later we'll read that the Pharisees were confident of their own righteousness. Chapter 18. We are the people that God will accept and will bless. And they looked down at everyone else. To them, verse 3, Jesus told this parable. Now, it's a parable with 3 chapters, or 3 parables, about a lost sheep that is joyfully found by its shepherd, a lost coin that is joyfully found by its owner, a lost son who is joyfully received back by his father. The context shows us that this is not some religious, cute bedtime story that Jesus told. These stories, these parables, this chapter is about God and what qualifies a person to know his blessing. See, as much as we might relate to the Father in the story, this Father represents God. This story is about God and where you really stand with him. Hear that. As we hear it this morning, this is about God and where I really stand with him. Again, the details don't need much explanation, but let's move through it, pulling out the meaning behind the parable. Verse 12. We have the youngest son who said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." You don't need a first century Jewish understanding to know that this is offensive. Because even today, you get the inheritance when your parents have died. Or if you are to get it early, it's because they've graciously, generously given it to you early. To front up and say, give it to me now, is effectively saying, I wish you were dead. What's going on for the son? Well, he's convinced that the inheritance from his father is greater than relationship with his father. Because to insist on having it now is to break that relationship. Having enough money to go on his own would be better than living in the family home. Now, if you have adult children who just won't move out of home, you might wish that they would. But I'm sure you shudder at the thought of them fronting up to you and say, I wish you were dead. Jesus tells this story, this brilliant story, in a way that he intends to align our sympathies. In a way that intends to align our sympathies. For example, if my wife's boss were to call me mid-morning and say, Brie hasn't shown up to work this morning, what is my immediate reaction? It's not, oh, that's because she just skipped the day, she's gone to the beach to work on a tan. No, it's, I'm worried because she's responsible, she's committed, something must have happened to her. My sympathies immediately go that way because of my experience of 26 years with this woman. Now, if it was when she was 16 when I met her, sure, she'd skip school to go to the beach, right? But now I know something's up because my sympathies are with her. What about when it comes to your sympathies and God? Where do your sympathies lie with God? Are they with God? Is that your instinct? Or are they elsewhere? We look at a world that's banged up and broken, right? Ravaged by war. Communities that are divided and hostile. Families that are the same. And it is very common to say, where is God in all of this? How dare God? Is he asleep at the wheel? Is he incompetent? Or is he just cruel? Where does Jesus expect us to align our sympathies with this story? It's with the Father, yes? The Father who has been so shamefully treated and wronged by the younger son. The Father who has been gracious to actually give him what he asked for and not destroy him then and there. Jesus tells this story in order to align our sympathies with God. And he's actually giving us something of a reason for the mess in our world. That we so often ask that question, how come God? And the reason is humanity is the younger son. Humanity is the younger son who has turned its back on God. We haven't cared to know God, to draw near to God, to delight in relationship with him. We've just wanted his stuff so that we can go our own way. You name it, whatever you have, it's a gift from God. Our health, our bodies, our intellects, the people we love, the hobbies we enjoy, the work that satisfies, that beautiful camping spot, the music that moves us, all of that is a gift from God. But instead of receiving the gift in devotion to the giver, in wanting to enjoy and delight in the giver, not the gift, we have instead head off to a distant country to focus only on the gifts. Our lives, our breath, our possessions, our relationships. And we are so sure that this will mean freedom. This will be the good life. Only to find it leads to slavery. This son has headed off as far from the father as possible. But when the money ran out, from the highs of the partying and the prostitutes, he crashes to the low of feeding pigs. Now think Jew here. Pigs, feeding pigs, not even able to eat the food that the pigs eat. What a low of lows. This son is lost, he's alone, he's miserable. And so what a high point that the story reaches as he's restored to the Father. But let's not miss the shock of that turn, of that high point. Because he heads home not expecting this at all. He heads home practicing his sorry speech, right? Verse 18, I'll go back to my father, I'll say to my father, I've sinned against, I'm no longer worthy to be called, and on he goes with his sorry speech. Can you relate to this? I remember heading home when I was young and very stupid, 3 a.m. one night, having crashed Dad's car, thinking, how am I going to break this to him? When I crashed it, driving around an oval into a goalpost, chasing rabbits, practicing the sorry speech. How's it going to go? What reaction am I going to be met? It was 3 a.m. I said, Dad, I crashed your car, but I'm all right, don't worry about me. What is this son expecting, given the way that he has treated his father? The extremes of his rebellion against him. Well, he's clearly not expecting what he gets. At best, he hopes that the father might receive him back as a slave. And then maybe over time I can work my way up. Maybe that's in the back of his mind. But just pause. Remember the setting that prompted this whole story that Jesus told. Who's there? Who's gathering around Jesus? Imagine what the tax collectors and sinners are expecting at this point in the story. They've never heard it before. What are they expecting at this point? Oh, we know how this bit goes. This is where this loser gets chased off the family estate. Or worse, he's beaten within a breath of death. They know how things go for people like that. But verse 20, as he gets up, he goes to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Did you see the footage of the hostages, the Israeli hostages who were released, being restored back to their loved ones? Did you see that footage? It's worth chasing up if you haven't, and I dare you to watch that and not shed a tear as you see these loved ones running and shouting and screaming and looking ridiculous and not caring one little bit what anyone thinks. Because they've got their loved one back in their arms. They couldn't care less what it looks like. They couldn't care less for any shame that comes with them. What shame? The father was filled with compassion for him. Verse 21, he begins the sorry speech that he's rehearsed. The son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Stop. It's as far through the sorry speech as he's going to get, because the father, verse 22, said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. These are all symbols of sonship. Only the sons had these things. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. That's a sign of extravagance. You didn't kill the fattened calf regularly. Parties are supposed to be things that you do which you don't normally do, which makes them special. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. What a story. Are you picturing it? Let's not miss the message of the younger son to us. And let me ask you very simply and directly, have you come home to know this embrace from God? Do you know your status as having been restored to a son, to a daughter of Almighty God? Do you know that heaven parties over having you back? Do you know that no cost was spared to throw this party for you? Do you know that about yourself this morning? Or are you still living in a distant land, far from God, actually? Why are you there if that's where you are? Well, it's possibly because you're afraid that you've disqualified yourself from ever coming back to God. You have a right sense of who God is, almighty and holy and perfect. And so I know my life. Who am I to think that I could draw near to this God? Maybe you think you've disqualified yourself from any blessing. It could be that you know firsthand the way of wild living, like this son. The debauchery that comes with that way of living that leaves you feeling so dirty. You've pursued free sex. And even though the world tells you this is freedom, you can't shake the feeling of having abused something that is sacred. You might know what a brothel looks like from the inside. You could be haunted by the abortion you had, or that she had because of you. You might have gambled away your family's income for the month or the year. You might see great darkness in your life and are terrified at the thought of coming back to God. Or it might be that you feel like you're damaged goods because of what's been done to you. The abuse that you have experienced, you are the victim of another's great sin. It leaves you feeling damaged, unclean, unworthy. Surely God wouldn't want me, would he? The darkness in our lives can mean we fear there is no way back to God. But what does Jesus say? He says, the mess of your life, the darkness and destruction only qualifies you to be one that God will run to and embrace full of compassion. The mess of your life, real as it is, qualifies you for his grace. Other of us haven't gone full on prodigal in our lives, but we're still very aware of our filth and unworthiness before God. I find this fascinating as I get into real conversations with people, and usually they get to a point where they acknowledge, wow, before God, I have no hope. Will my lying and my lies to keep covering the lies mean God is done with me? Will my secret lusts, my fantasies, my porn use, will that mean I'm doomed to the pig slop forever? I've stolen and not been caught. But I know God knows, so does that mean God will never want to know me? Or I've just never given God a second thought. I've only cared about the gifts, the good things that I enjoy in my life. I've never cared about the giver. So surely I should just keep my distance because, if someone did that to me, I know how I'd feel. And on goes the list of the more presentable prodigal. We fear there is no way back to God. But what does Jesus say? the beauty of this story, and there's much more, of course, to be said, but even just this story is, though the son feared what he might come home to, Jesus tells us what we can be confident of coming home to. Not punishment, not vindictiveness, not the consequences that we really do deserve, but the run and embrace and kiss of a Father who longs to have you back. Because, friends, that's who your God is. He's the Father. You might have a picture of God. Everyone does. And so sadly, so many in our community have such a wrong picture of God. It's like, where did you get this picture? Like, in one sense, no wonder you're living the way that you are if you think that's what God is like. You might picture God as the harshest of fathers, the grumpiest of strict judges, or just the most distant, impersonal of powers. And so your goal is to keep your distance, to just you do you. But friends, look at who Jesus says your God is. The God who will embrace and restore and throw the biggest party in heaven we could imagine. For you, yes, you. But only if you would come to your senses. Why does the story end the way that it does for their younger son? As messed up and as dark as his life is? Because, verse 17, he came to his senses. Who knows how long it took to get there? There were days that were just as dark, and he didn't get there. He kept pushing and pursuing this freedom which was slavery. But the day comes when he came to his senses. For you to know the embrace of your God like this, you must come to your senses. You must consciously decide to stop running from God, to stop abusing him, using him, taking from him, to stop in your rebellion. And to choose to turn back. And just notice from this story, it might actually take hitting rock bottom to bring you to your senses. I've got 4 kids, 3 of them now, well and truly teenagers, one soon to join them. And so, we're in that stage of life where we're now starting to see them step further out from the nest, make more and more of their own decisions as we try and raise them to be well-adjusted adults. Therefore, more and more of the bigger consequences that come from making bigger decisions and so on. Like all parents, I deeply want them to grow up as well-adjusted as possible, to make as many wise decisions as possible, to avoid foolish ones that can lead down a path of darkness and despair from hitting rock bottom. But you know what? My kids hitting rock bottom in life is not the worst thing that can happen to them. Refusing to come to their senses and come back to God is the worst thing that will happen to them. Staying distant from God. And so I've found myself, have you found this, as a parent, wanting to raise a kid that's well-adjusted, knows good things, and on the other hand go blow your life up, but just always know you have a God who will have you back. And as much as possible to be the earthly father who can give expression to it. You come to me with the biggest mess you can ever make, and I am praying and determined to be that one who will embrace you and show grace. Oh, there's consequences, yes, yes, yes. Friends, there are far worse things than just hitting rock bottom in life. It's to stay distant from God, which takes, therefore, great humility to come back. People who think they've hit rock bottom but refuse to turn back to God will find that their stubbornness only takes them lower, leaves them more lost. Don't let that be you today. Today, if you hear God's voice, don't harden your heart, because today you have heard of who your God is. You have heard Jesus give the diagnosis of the whole human condition, which is to run from him. And you've heard that all you need to do is come to your senses and turn back, and he will embrace you. Do that today. Come back today. You cannot leave here this morning going, yeah, but my life is too bad. There's no way he'll have me back. You've just heard Jesus say, as far as your wickedness has gone, God's grace has gone further. But it does beg the question, how can you be so confident of being embraced without fear of punishment? Well, that's because there's actually 3 sons in this story. There's the older one, I'll touch on him very briefly in a moment, the younger one. But the 3rd son is the one who tells the story, the eternal Son of God. This is the one through whom all things were made, all the gifts were made, who has come into his world. And as we keep reading this account from Luke, we're going to find this true story of Jesus as he makes his way to Jerusalem will actually be the greatest story we ever read. Jesus probably made up the parable of the prodigal, but in a matter of weeks from this telling of the story, this first telling, he will die being executed on a Roman cross. And he'll be doing this on mission with his heavenly Father to save sinners, to pay the debt of our rebellion, to restore the inheritance that we've squandered. Friends, there's the historical grounds for our confidence. The Father can receive anyone back without fear of punishment because that punishment has been paid. Everything the younger son deserved, Jesus stood and took. So come to your senses, come home today. But we can't finish without just very briefly noticing the message Jesus aims at the older sons, the Pharisees, the tax collectors, the Bible people, the synagogue people, the church people, the good people. The one who is confident of their own standing with God because they've been slaving away for him. Did you see the complaint of the older brother? Verse 29, I've been slaving for you. I've never disobeyed your orders. Jesus is saying, really? Is that what you think relationship with God is? Slaving away under his stinginess as he won't even kill a goat, let alone a fattened calf for you? You are more lost than your rebellious younger brother. See, it is possible to get lost at home and by running away. It's possible to be near all of this God stuff, Bible stuff, but actually not know the Father, not know the heart of the Father. Because if you did, you would join in with him and delight over another sinner coming back as you came back. Is this you this morning? Are you here? You've not done the spectacular prodigal lost thing, but you are confident that you will be okay with God because you have lived a good enough life. Is that you this morning? I would be very surprised if we didn't have anyone who was here this morning thinking, I will be okay with God because I'm a respectable person. Then hear the warning of Jesus to you this morning. You are even more lost than the people you look down on. And so, hear also the invitation of the Father this morning. Because the Father goes out to the older brother and pleads with him, come in, don't miss the party. Because the Father's heart is so gracious, looking for those who are lost in darkness, lost in plain sight, to come back, to draw near, and to enjoy this relationship with him. I'm going to give us a moment to actually do that right now, to act on this. Is this morning, the morning you've heard the word of Jesus to come home? I'm going to pray a prayer slowly for you to make your own. If you've already prayed that prayer, it's not like you need to come home again unless you have wandered, but you need to remember what it is that you have done and delight in it. Let me lead us in that prayer now. Almighty God, I want to come home. I want to come home. I have run away. I've taken your gifts, not cared for you, the giver. But I want to come home. Would you have me home? Would you forgive me? And I look to your Son who has taken my punishment for me. Would you give me all that comes with being embraced by Almighty God, to be able to call him Father? Would you give me peace? Would you give me contentment? Would you give me joy? Would you give me hope, light, purpose, love? You need to know, friends, if you have prayed that prayer, that heaven rejoices over you today. And it's not just a moment that God has before he then starts enduring you, but you now get to live every day as his beloved child. We have a message like no other, one to celebrate, one to put on our lips in song. So can I ask you to stand? And as we sing this song, to sing from a heart that has been restored to the Father.